Hey everyone, welcome to the Draw My Rights crash course. The lessons we will go over today will cover topics on the AP exam next week, as well as giving you a deeper understanding of your civil rights and liberties in addition to the 1st, 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendments.
What's up guys? Welcome to Chapter 5 and 6, Civil Rights and Civil Liberties. My name is Julia.
I'm Ayu.
I'm Maggie.
And we will be explaining all of the concepts to you.
And I'm Anna, and I'll be drawing them out.
Civil liberties and civil rights take up about 5 to 15% of the AP exam. So what we will be going over today is the development of civil liberties and civil rights by judicial interpretation, knowledge of substantive rights and liberties. So substantive rights involve a right to the substance of being human, so life, liberty, and happiness. And substantive liberties are restraints limiting what the government shall have the power to do, such as restricting freedom of speech, religion, or freedom of the press. The third thing we're going to be going over is the impact of the 14th Amendment on the constitutional development of rights and liberties.
Civil liberties and civil rights. It all sounds like something we know about, right? I mean, you're a civilian, I'm a civilian. We all have certain rights that we feel we should be entitled to as members of this country. In the United States, that happens to be true. Today we're going to go over some of those rights and how they were endowed to us by our creators and stuff like that.
First, some definitions. Civil liberties are limitations on the government's power, and they're intended to protect freedoms the government legally cannot intrude on.
Civil liberties are incorporated into our Constitution and, by design, cannot be intruded upon by the government, except in the case of public safety. Civil liberties include freedom of speech, religion, and press. For example, the First Amendment doesn't allow the government, state or federal, to stop people from exercising whatever religion they desire, even if they themselves disagree with what it teaches. Now we're on to civil rights. Civil rights are guarantees that government officials will treat all citizens equally. These essentially are the rights to be human. These include life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, a phrase I know you've all heard before. Civil rights also dictate that all laws and decisions will be based on merit, rather than race, gender, and ethnicity.
One of the most important parts of making sure that civil liberties and rights are not infringed upon by the government is the idea of due process. Due process ensures that all citizens are entitled to trial before imprisonment and that no individuals are subject to unjust treatment in the eyes of the law. Civil rights and liberties were initially placed into our Constitution, but have been reiterated and developed through judicial review in the amendments. Some of the major amendments that shaped our civil rights and liberties today are the 1st, 5th, 6th, and 14th.
The First Amendment states, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of the people peacefully to assemble, and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
This amendment was called into question in Engel v. Vital. The court decided that it was unconstitutional for prayer to be held at public school. The reasons given for their decision follow as such. The practice of religion cannot be forced upon anyone, as outlined by the Freedom of Religion Clause, and public schools are government funded, so holding prayer violates the separation of church and state. Furthermore, monotheistic prayer isolates kids of other religion.
The Fifth Amendment states, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on imprisonment or indictment of a grand jury, except for in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be put twice in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation.
Miranda v. Arizona set the precedent for this amendment. This case mandates that police must inform criminal suspects of their constitutional rights before questioning subjects upon their arrest. The rights of an arrested person follow as such.
Right to remain silent. Be represented by a lawyer. Demand a writ of habeas corpus. And lastly, we have receive a speedy and public trial.
The Sixth Amendment states, "In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witness against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and have the assistance of counsel for his defense." In Gideon v. Wainwright, the precedent stands that every citizen must have the right to counsel, no matter the lack of funds.
The 14th Amendment. The 14th Amendment is divided into 5 main sections. The first section implies that all people born or naturalized in America are subject to the jurisdiction of the nation. No state is allowed to make or enforce any laws that abridge any privileges and immunities that come with being a United States citizen. That is why it's also referred to as the Privileges and Immunities section. In Plessy v. Ferguson in 1896, the separate but equal doctrine was upheld, which states that students can be separated by color as long as those separate schools are equally good. However, because of the 14th Amendment and it guarantees citizens equal protection of the laws, Brown v. Board of Education of Topeka in 1954 established that separation of students by race is inherently unequal, even if they are put in equally good schools. The biggest measure for civil rights taken in the 1950s came from Brown v. Board of Education when that state-mandated school segregation was declared unconstitutional.
Most of the individual protections of the Bill of Rights now also apply to the states because of the Supreme Court interpretation of the Constitution's 14th Amendment. It also gives citizens a right to privacy, as shown in cases Griswold v. Connecticut and Roe v. Wade.
In Griswold v. Connecticut, the Supreme Court made precedent that couples have a right to privacy in marital relations, which was then used in Roe v. Wade, a case to state that a woman's right to an abortion falls within her own right to privacy and cannot be infringed upon by state or federal governments.
Second section repealed the 3/5 clause of the original Constitution after slavery was outlawed. It also guarantees that male citizens over 21 have the right to vote, no matter their race.
Women were then given the right to vote by the 19th Amendment, adopted on August 18, 1920. The 19th Amendment states, "The right of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex." So this means that whether male or female, citizens of the United States shall be given the right to vote.
The third section says that unless and until they have received a 2/3 vote in Congress, former Confederate leaders were barred from voting in federal elections or holding federal office.
Fourth section contains 2 general statements, both surrounding debt, in which the debt of the U.S. cannot be questioned and invalidates any date occurred by a rebellion within the U.S.
The fifth section states that Congress has the power to enforce by legislation the provisions of this article. So that means that every section of the 14th Amendment, the Congress has the right to enforce it in both state and federal governments.
Before we say our farewells, let's do a quick recap.
Civil liberties can be defined as limitations on the government's power, and they are outlined in the amendments of our Constitution.
Civil rights can be defined as the government guaranteeing officials will treat all citizens equally, despite race, gender, ethnicity, or orientation.
The First Amendment states that every United States citizen has the freedom to speak, worship, and write freely. We saw Anna draw the case Engel v. Vitale, in which a dispute on whether or not prayer should be enforced in public schools. They ruled that enforcing prayer in public schools is unconstitutional because the government is not allowed to enforce any establishment of religion.
The Fifth Amendment is the foundation of due process and guarantees that if you ever get arrested, you'll be treated fairly and offered the opportunity to be represented by a lawyer. Anna depicted this through her lovely drawing of Miranda v. Arizona, where it was ruled that every citizen must be informed of their rights upon arrest. Sixth Amendment. Every citizen has the right to a jury and a speedy trial, and the prison system isn't allowed to just hold you for years and years without even hearing your case first. It also makes sure that the jury presiding over a case is a fair one, so all the members for a kidnapping case jury couldn't be ex-kidnapping victims or anything crazy like that.
Then the 14th Amendment defined national citizenship and prevents the states from infringing upon those rights in any ordinary circumstance. Anna drew the case Board v. the Board of Education, in which the equal protection of the law was enforced, and every citizen, no matter the race, had the opportunity to an equal education.
That's all, you guys. We hope you enjoyed Write Your Rights.
Whatever happened to predictability? The milkman, the paperboy, evening TV.